The air stopped circulating. The silence gained density. Charles tried to swallow hard, but his throat was blocked. His hair stood on end, and cold sweat ran down the back of his neck. Something was watching him. But from where? The brown home seemed normal on the outside, but within its walls a secret lived with a life of its own. Every inch held a mystery that defied all human understanding. The terror was not outside. It was right here, so close he could almost feel it breathing. Mary Brown noticed it first, a slightly displaced object, a barely noticeable creak at night. Steps that could not be human. They were details so small that anyone would ignore them. But something in his intuition screamed a silent warning. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up every time he looked into the dark corners. The shadows seemed to move, breathe, watch. Like something was there, right under your skin, right inside your walls. The world revolves around small details that go unnoticed, seemingly insignificant moments that carry the potential to completely destroy an existence. In the Brown house, every breath, every whisper held a secret that was beyond understanding. A silent terror inhabited the hidden spaces, transforming the architecture into a labyrinth of observation and psychological manipulation. Among the objects found, a Polaroid caught attention. Charles sleeping, recorded from an impossible angle. Someone had taken that photo from inside the walls. His hands shook as he realized that that record wasn't just an image. It was a message, a warning, a silent declaration that something was there all along, watching, waiting. But what Mary saw inside that wall, no one could have ever imagined. His heart raced, breathing failed. Something that would make even investigators lose sleep was about to be revealed. Has this ever happened in real life? Comment, "This can't be real," and share with someone who needs to know this story. In the next block, you'll see what you did until the investigators lost sleep. The air was heavy. The house breathed with something else. An invisible gaze penetrated each room with a surgical precision that went beyond human comprehension. He knew every habit, every breath, every most intimate secret. He knew exactly when they slept, when they were alone, when they shared intimate moments. He was not an observer. He was a predator who turned the house into a hunting ground, every movement meticulously studied. The presence was almost palpable. A human being had transformed that house into a secret habitat, a psychological manipulation laboratory, every movement calculated, every breath controlled. It was as if the very structure of the house had gained consciousness, breathing along with its inhabitants, observing every detail with a coldness that defied any rational logic. The first signs were too subtle to be noticed instantly. An object slightly out of place, an almost imperceptible creak in the early hours of the morning, steps that could not be human. Mary Brown, a meticulous housewife, began to notice changes that sent shivers down her spine. They were such small details that they could easily be ignored. But something screamed that something was terribly wrong. If you think your home is safe, you may need to rethink everything. Danger may be much closer than you think. Among the objects found, a revealing Polaroid, an impossible angle of an intimate scene, recorded from within the walls themselves. How could someone be so close without being noticed? The answer will make you question everything you believe about security. But what Charles discovered in the next room, no one could have ever predicted. His heart raced, breathing failed. Something that would make even investigators lose sleep was about to be revealed. Comment, "This can't be happening," and prepare for the shock that will change your perception of security forever. The air froze. Charles felt every hair on his body stand up when he discovered the first secret compartment. It wasn't just a hiding place. It was a nightmare sanctuary, built to the millimeter within the walls of his own home. The footprints on the ground looked neither human nor animal. Something impossible had been there, watching, breathing with the family. His fingers trembled as he touched the walls, feeling a disturbing energy that went beyond rational understanding. Sweat ran cold down his spine, revealing a terror that surpassed any imaginable nightmare. Investigators mapped the compartment with a growing terror that consumed every ounce of their rationality. Observation systems built with diabolical ingenuity that defied all human understanding. Every detail revealed an invasion method so meticulous it was almost scientific. hidden cameras, miniaturized microphones, tracking systems that allowed every breath, every movement, every family secret to be known with a surgical precision that chilled even the most experienced investigators. The first evidence ripped through any veil of normality, like a silent scream of terror. Detailed diaries written with a disturbing coldness, photographs taken at impossible angles, recording intimate moments that should never have been seen. Each page was a fragment of a psychological puzzle that challenged the limits of human sanity. Someone had watched every movement, every breath, every family secret with an intimacy that surpassed any limit of understanding.
Safreste, poor behind that architectural nightmare, it wasn't just an invasion. Skomisheshapa penetrated every inch of his existence. Zone he's no longer a home. Frabi, what to become a hunting ground? Zumos Fisiki walls, penetrating the family's innermost psyche with a precision that chilled the soul.
But what they found in the next room defied all logic of existence. Ricardo Mendez was not an isolated case. The police discovered evidence that this practice was part of something much larger, a pattern of invasion that no one had noticed before, a system of urban predators that transformed homes into territories of psychological experimentation. Comment, "This is impossible," and share. In the next block, you will see the secret that will make your blood freeze. The secret compartment breathed like a living organism, pulsing with an energy beyond human comprehension. The walls exuded a smell of impossible presence, something between oxidized metal and an artificial musty perfume. Charles felt his entire body turn into a mass of pure terror as he realized that the marks on the walls weren't just marks. They were codes, records, a mapping system so complex that it seemed to have been created by a mind that defied all logic of existence. The invader's profile was drawn like an architectural nightmare that consumed every inch of human rationality. He was no ordinary criminal. It was someone with technical knowledge who transformed security systems into children's toys. Years of meticulous planning, detailed study that went far beyond simple observation, every detail calculated with a surgical precision that would give any investigator goosebumps. How could someone build a hacking system so sophisticated that it turned homes into psychological experimentation labs? The evidence constructed a narrative that completely destroyed the concept of privacy. The intruder knew every inch of the house as if it were part of his own body. He knew schedules, habits, moments of vulnerability with a precision that was beyond comprehension. He was not an observer. He was a predator who had turned the house into his hunting ground, penetrating the family psyche with a coldness that defied all human understanding. The investigation revealed details that seemed to come out of a collective nightmare that consumed every inch of rationality. The attacker never paid rent. He was never officially a resident. He lived in hidden spaces, in architectural interstices that go unnoticed. A being who made invasion his form of existence, transforming the house into a labyrinth of secrets and psychological manipulation that went far beyond understanding. But what they found in the next room defied all logic of existence. The door to the secret compartment opened by itself. Inside, there was something that would make even the most experienced investigators lose sleep. A secret so disturbing it could completely destroy understanding of security. Comment, "This can't be real," and get ready. In the next block, the shock that will make you question everything that exists. The name Ricardo Mendez emerged from the shadows like a bureaucratic ghost that awakened the worst human nightmares. Building maintenance technician, 42 years old, had a criminal history that defied all psychological understanding. Each invasion was more than a crime, it was a morbid masterpiece of psychological manipulation. His eyes, when finally captured in police photography, contained an emptiness that went beyond the human. A predator who has turned invasion into an art of silent destruction, every home a territory of experimentation, every family a guinea pig in his laboratory of psychological terror. Ricardo's methodology went beyond any limit of traditional criminal understanding. He didn't just build observation systems, it created true invasion ecosystems within residential structures. Walls turned into secret tunnels, dead spaces in perfect manipulation observatories, Each invasion was planned with a surgical precision that chilled investigators. His method was not aimed at robbery. It aimed at total psychological domination, destroying not bodies but souls. Investigators found a file that looked like something out of a collective nightmare. Dozens of houses had been silent victims of Ricardo. Entire families observed, their most intimate moments recorded in meticulous diaries that revealed a disturbing mind. They weren't just invasions. They were calculated psychological experiments. Each family became an experiment. Each house was a manipulation laboratory, where intimacy was dissected with a coldness that defied all human understanding. The psychological impact went far beyond what was understandable by rational logic. How could someone live for years within the walls of a family without being discovered? Ricardo had transformed the invasion into a scientific art of observation. He studied patterns of behavior with a precision that penetrated beyond the skin, beyond the psyche. He knew every detail of the family routine as if it were part of that existence. He wasn't just an invader. He was a social predator who made observation his form of existence. But what they found in Ricardo's next documents, no one could have ever imagined. Evidence revealed that he was not an isolated case. There was a network, a system, an organization of urban predators who transformed invasion into a psychological art of total manipulation. Comment, "This can't exist," and get ready. In the next block, the secret that will make your blood freeze in your veins. The moment of confrontation arrived like a storm of absolute terror. Charles Brown was no longer just a family man. He had transformed into a hunter, driven by an energy that went far beyond fear. Every movement calculated, every breath controlled. He knew that Ricardo would not be captured easily. He was a predator who had transformed invasion into an art of psychological survival. The game was now one of pure intelligence and absolute survival. The police mounted an operation that defied all traditional investigative logic. Specialists in criminal behavior, forensic architects, surveillance systems that went far beyond conventional cameras. Ricardo had created an architectural labyrinth within the residential structure itself. Walls turned into tunnels, dead spaces in perfect observatories of psychological manipulation. Every inch was a trap, every corner a potential observation point. The moment of direct confrontation arrived on a night that seemed to freeze time, suspending reality in an instant of absolute terror. Ricardo was cornered, but not defeated. His every movement calculated like that of a wild animal about to attack. He knew every inch of that territory like the back of his hand. The walls were no longer just walls, they were his tunnels, your ways, your psychological survival trenches. The Brown family had completely transformed. They were no longer victims. They were hunters, driven by an energy that went far beyond what was understandable by common human logic. Each member knew that the confrontation would be definitive. It wouldn't just be about catching an attacker. It was about destroying an invasion system that had consumed years of their lives. Fear had become a driving force that defied all rational understanding. The last move would be decisive. A moment that would determine not only Ricardo's fate, but the psychological future of the Brown family. Ricardo knew it would be his last chance to escape. The Brown family knew it would be their final moment to regain their safety.
Come here, one would survive. Come here, this can't end well, and get ready. Your perception of reality, Ray, she was an open wound that no therapy could completely heal. Miosha penetrated every inch of their psychological existence. Gua. Every movement on the walls became a trigger of absolute terror.
Fear had settled in like a second skin, a constant presence that breathed with each family member, reminding them at every moment of the psychological violation they had suffered. The investigations revealed a terrifying pattern that went far beyond Ricardo's individual case. It was not an isolated case, but part of a shadowy network of urban predators who turned trespassing into a perverse lifestyle. Criminal behavior experts mapped a web of meticulous intrusions that defied all human understanding. Each case was a piece of a larger psychological puzzle, a web of terror that stretched the limits of human existence. Legal mechanisms proved to be completely unprepared, to deal with such a sophisticated and psychologically destructive type of invasion. How to judge someone who invades without leaving physical marks. How to punish a criminal who violates privacy without touching a single material object. The judicial system was faced with a type of crime that defied all traditional definitions of invasion, a psychological terror that went far beyond established legal limits. The social impact was like a psychological tsunami that swept away all structures of human security and understanding. Home security companies have been forced to completely rethink their systems. Architects began designing houses as psychological fortresses. Entire families began to look at their own walls with a fear that went far beyond understanding. The sense of security had been completely destroyed, replaced by a constant awareness of vulnerability. Ricardo's stories began to spread like a psychological virus that contaminated the collective consciousness. Documentaries, reports, criminal analyses multiplied exponentially. Each revelation added another layer of collective terror, defying all understanding of security and invasion. Comment: this is too scary, and get ready. The truth will make you question everything you know about human existence. Security experts began developing technologies that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Sensors capable of detecting microscopic movements within building structures. Scanning systems that went far beyond traditional cameras. Ricardo's invasion had sparked a technological revolution that completely transformed the concept of home security, creating a new era of psychological protection that went far beyond conventional methods. Universities began profound research that challenged all limits of human knowledge. Psychologists, criminologists, architects have come together in an unprecedented effort to understand the mind behind these urban predators. Every detail of the Ricardo case was dissected, analyzed, transformed into study material that went far beyond a simple criminal investigation. Understanding became the first line of defense against future invaders. The media transformed the story into a cultural phenomenon that consumed the collective consciousness. Television shows, podcasts, books began to explore the disturbing details of the case. Society discovered that the real terror was not in fictional monsters, but in the human capacity to violate intimacies in absolutely unimaginable ways. Each revelation challenged the limits of human understanding, creating a collective awareness of the hidden dangers of modern invasion. American families began to completely rethink the concept of privacy, transforming the way they live and perceive spaces. Security systems have been installed. Discussions about invasion of privacy have gained new contours. Walls were no longer just architectural structures. They had become battle frontiers against invisible predators that inhabited the hidden spaces of society. Ricardo's legacy went far beyond a simple criminal case. It had become a social warning, a cry for awareness about the limits of modern invasion. Comment: I will never feel safe again, and get ready. The truth about invasion will shock the world. In the next block, the final revelation that will change everything you know about human existence. The last chapter of the story would not be about Ricardo, but about the resignification of the fear that inhabits the most intimate spaces of human existence. The Brown family had become a symbol of resistance that went far beyond any narrative of victimization. Each member carried the invisible marks of the invasion, but also the strength of someone who survived the unthinkable. They were no longer passive victims. They had become warriors in a psychological battle that challenged all limits of human understanding. The lessons learned went beyond any traditional judicial process. Ricardo was condemned, but the real trial took place in the collective consciousness. In a transformation that went far beyond established legal limits, society discovered that safety was not in bars or cameras, but in the ability to be truly attentive, to question, to notice the invisible signs that surround our apparently normal daily lives, but which carry layers of terror and vulnerability. Criminal behavior experts developed new protocols that seemed straight out of a science fiction movie. Trainings to identify patterns of psychological invasion were created. Entire families began to develop a new awareness of the spaces they inhabit. Fear had been transformed into knowledge, into a weapon of protection much more powerful than any traditional security system. Ricardo's story became a global wake-up call that penetrated every inch of social consciousness. Documentaries, books, and criminal analyses spread across the world, revealing a disturbing reality about the limits of modern invasion. Every detail served as a survival manual against predators that inhabit the hidden spaces of society. People discovered that true security lay in understanding, in the ability to perceive the invisible. And now, look at your house, into the shadows, to silence. Are you sure you are alone? The first sign always comes subtle, a whisper, a shiver. But when you realize, it's already too late. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more shocking revelations. Comment, I believe in the love of truth. In the next video, an even more impressive story awaits you, ready to destroy your perception of reality.